Welcome to our program today, the pattern room program. Today, we're looking at the concept of overwhelm. If unless you are not a human being, you won't be a stranger to feeling overwhelmed. There'll be situations that will have come your way that would make you feel overwhelmed. But today, we're going to be looking at how we can use AI to help us with the feeling of overwhelm, specifically to be able to overcome this if it is a persistent problem, particularly. So, this is for you if you often feel like you're carrying too much, or you often feel that there are too many demands on you. It's almost like there's way less hours in the day in comparison to the amount of things that has to be done. Or maybe you feel like you're constantly chasing yourself. Um, This is for you if you find yourself waking up with anxiety about how you're going to get through the amount of things that has to be done in the day. So I just noticed that Zoom have decided to transcribe my meeting without asking me. Sorry, Abigail. Um, we've got a few people here also. Okay, so just notice that Zoom is just transcribing my meeting. So just give me a second. I'm just trying to stop that. Okay.
Did I not helping you to transcribe your meeting so you don't feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, yeah. It's just that sometimes these organizations they're transcribing things so that they can get your material on their database so that they can use it to train their own AIs. And they are not necessarily asking me. You didn't ask me if I wanted to do it; you just decided to do it my the purpose. But okay, something completely different. But go back to the concept of overwhelm. So this is for you specifically if you find you wake up in the morning with anxiety because you're thinking about the amount of tasks you have in front of you for the day, or if you feel like there's just so much on your mind that you just find yourself just struggling to not overthink and over worry about things. So just in case this is your first time you're seeing me, first time you're coming onto our program, just a little bit about myself. My name is Adewale Ademiwa. I'm the founder of StressTherapist.net, and I have been working as a licensed consultant psychotherapist roughly for 15 years. But in mental health space, I've been working in mental health for over 30 years now, helping people around things like depression, trauma, personality difficulties, and all forms of anxieties. So I've helped over 1,600 people now go through different types of difficulties, especially learn to survive, actually move out of just living in survival mode and being able to get to a place where they are thriving. Um, and a lot of what I work around, the core concepts are called the four forces framework, which I use to help people deal with different things. Now, a lot of the concepts that we've gone through and through a lot of the sessions we've had already, there are elements of the four forces in there. I'm hoping one day to actually do a presentation of four forces framework properly because I think it's a very fundamental thing to how human beings live and how human beings thrive. Now, my aim is over the next year to do these pattern rooms where I'm giving people insight into how to cope and function in a way where emotions do not become a hindrance in life anymore, so that they can actually be able to get through life and deal with problems, deal with things, and feel emotionally strong, despite of whatever comes by their way. And as I always say, one of my passions now is, and I've just complained about them using AI, but my passion is being able to kind of use AI in conjunction with neuroscience and psychotherapy and so help people find different ideas and different tools that they can use for coping in ways that just makes it a lot easier. So back to our session today. While we're dealing with the feeling of overwhelm, actually, before I continue, you may notice that you can't see me. I usually like for people to see me, but for some reason my camera is not working today. So you can't see me. But I must confess, I'm not an AI. I'm a real person. I've been making a lot of perhaps mistakes enough to let you know that I'm a real person today. Okay. So, um, usually when we are dealing with the feeling of overwhelm, the tendency is to think that it has to do with the volume of things that we have on our plate. In other words, I've got too much. There's just not enough hours. Um, Perhaps there is a productivity push that I just don't have, that I'm not getting. But then there's a reality that we all see. Now, quite often, you have people around us who are perhaps having the same amount of pressures and the same amount of tasks. And for some reason, they often don't seem as overwhelmed. Now, some may be overwhelmed and but just very good at pretending that they're not overwhelmed. But quite often, there's a lot of people who are coping despite having a lot on their plate. Despite having a lot of pressures. Um, so, what is really going on? First thing I have to say is that this has nothing to do with a person's inabilities, but more to do with certain concepts that we don't ever really get shown or told. And hopefully, once you get to understand what we share today, a lot of things will just come into focus and think, this seems really obvious. This Why didn't I think about this already? But for some reason, we just never get shown these things. So I'm hoping that at the end of the session today, these will become really clear and you'll be able to find value in it. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that it was never really a volume problem. It's not really caused by what is on your plate. It's not caused by how well you prepare to manage everything, but it's often caused by our tendency to try to hold or solve or prepare for a lot of things together. And I'm going to elaborate on that because that sentence is not really perhaps giving justice to really the nature of the problem. So another way to kind of look at this problem is that you can think of it as a matching problem where it's a bit like what they say, um, come and eat rice, let's just say, and you brought just a knife to eat rice. Most people will think, okay, to eat rice, you either have a knife or a fork, a spoon or fork to eat rice, because maybe even a fork is a little bit being a bit too posh because it perhaps won't pick enough of the rice up as a spoon would. But you bring a knife, right? So the first part of the problem is that there's a matching problem where when there's overwhelm being caused by capacity issues, we may bring a tool that manages rumination. And unfortunately, when that happens, it collapses and it really doesn't work because the tool is not meeting the job. Or if there's a problem that's caused by a fused problem, which I'm going to explain what all of that means in a second, and we are using a productivity tool to try and manage it, it just would not work. So in other words, there's a wrong tool being used when we feel overwhelmed and we don't even realize we're using the wrong tool. So to help us really understand that, let's just look at the how I would describe overwhelm first of all. So I will describe overwhelm as a problem that becomes too large, too interconnected, too undefined, or too mentally crowded to deal with as one whole. Now, you notice I'm not just saying only too large. Overwhelm is caused by an interconnectivity problem. It's all these things sort of welded together and produces the overwhelming feeling. And to kind of put more clarity on that, then we can think of overwhelm as having these 5 shapes. So when I'm thinking of overwhelm, I'm thinking of them in terms of this problem. There's bigger problems, more problems than these 5 shapes. But if you are able to at least address these 5 shapes and do that consistently, you're most likely able to overcome the problem of overwhelm and be able to manage it in a very more effective way. So the first monster, I call these monsters, right, is the fused problem monster. So what's the fused problem monster? I'm going to be explaining all of them one by one. I'm going through them in depth with you right now. So we've got the fused problem monster. We've got the phantom capacity monster. We've got the it's all urgent monster. And we've got the well thinking monster. And we've got the no end monster. Now, just to see what you're all thinking and just get a flavor of what you're all thinking, can somebody tell me what they think at least one of the monster is? So just pick up any of the 5 here and just tell me from your perspective, or just have a guess. It doesn't have to be correct. With these monsters, what do you think they will be about?
Life challenges.
Life challenges. So which one is the life challenges? Which of them?
The very big monster.
The very big monster. Yeah. Thank you for that. Anybody can have another go at just name one of the ones on the screen and tell me what part of how is it really relevant to overwhelm? What's your thinking? You can write it down as well if you don't want to speak on the mic.
I'm thinking the fuse problem. So the first one. So that is yeah, that one, the first one.
Right. So the fuse problem. Is that what you're calling the very big monster?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Cool. Any other takers? Still tapping in the chat. I think yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So if you feel like guessing as I carry on with the presentation, feel free to just put your thoughts in there. Right. So we'll be discussing each of these ones as we go. But as I do this, please, we want to note that the job of AI is to externalize the problem, sort the problem, and then hand back a workable portion of the problem. And why do I say that? Again, AI is not here to kind of take away our role in coping, but it's here to actually just make the process easier to do. And we'll be seeing how AI will help us externalize this. And I say externalize because quite often when we're dealing with things that has to do with our emotions, that may have to do with feelings of overwhelm, there's a tendency that we may internalize 2 things. We internalize the problem, and then we internalize our feelings about how we're dealing with the problem. And that may feel like a bit of a twister. But as we think about it this way, so let's say my son told me that we have to pay for a particular school event. And just before he came in, I was thinking that, okay, the last 20 pounds I had in my account, I was going to use it to pay for fuel. And then it becomes that at that particular moment, I need to give my son the £20 for this school trip. And now I'm beating myself up. Why didn't I think about this before? Why didn't I plan this properly? Right. So there's two things happening there now. One is that I have the problem of my son needs money that I had to give him away, and that takes away money from the petrol that I was planning to buy. That's one part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is now I am beating myself up for what I feel is a mistake that I should have managed properly. That's a different part of the problem. In other words, I'm internalizing the problem. And the problem is that when we start to internalize problems, we start to fight true battles, and that in itself creates overwhelm. Because when we are beating ourselves up for failing, or we are feeling sad for feeling sad, or feeling anxious for feeling anxious, or feeling angry for feeling anxious, overwhelm is just going to set in immediately. If that explanation makes sense, can I just see maybe some thumbs up and some yeses if you can speak in the mic? Can I see how that concept of externalizing things is so crucial? Great. Thanks. So first, one of the jobs that AI is helping us do is externalizing this experience from ourselves. So, and then we're going to give AI the goal of sorting things out. And then once it sorts things out, it's going to hand us back one approach, one workable solution, right? And so we're going to go into how this is going to work now. So back to our 5 monsters. So in other words, the first thing that we're going to try and get AI to do is to help us to assess which of these 5 monsters am I dealing with right now. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, which of these 5 monsters am I dealing with right now? So we would be asking AI as soon as I explain all each of these monsters are, and you'll be getting prompts for this later on. So we're asking AI first of all, okay, look at the problem I'm going through right now. Can you just first of all tell me, looking through our list of 5 types of things that cause overwhelm, which of these things am I faced with right now? So once you understand that, then we'll move on to the particular strategy for each of them. Now, why am I saying this? Usually people would expect that, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And they think of feeling overwhelmed as this is just one thing that is happening to me. Whereas in most cases, you could actually have all these 5 things showing up at the same time. And if the 5 things are showing up at the same time and you're trying to just manage just one of those things, this kind of takes me back to what I said earlier on. We're using the wrong tool to address the problem. So what are these 5 things now? We're just going to go into each of these 5 things now. So the first one is the fused problem monster. Now, when I think of the fused problem monster, I'm often thinking of a tangled mess of wires. Some of you who know me, I go around with a keyboard, piano, and musical, what do you call it? Jack and cables. Sometimes those cables will be so intertwined and interlocked that even the thought of having to sort of separate the wires in itself overwhelms. And Mr. Agba, I believe that you understand what I'm saying, because I think you had to deal with that as well. I do. You had to deal with that as well. So having to kind of pull the wires out. Now, quite often, a problem that we may be faced with will feel almost like a tangled mess of wires. And it could be a problem like maybe there's an historical issue that you're dealing with. It could be something as like I lost my dad, or I lost a parent, I lost a partner, I lost somebody. And every time I'm trying to deal with something, maybe I have to deal with their bags, or their belongings. Each time I sit down to try and deal with their belongings, it just feels like a tangled mess of wire. Not necessarily because their belongings there feels like a tangled mess of wire, but trying to deal with everything just feels so painful. Just feels like just a lot. It feels like it's just so overwhelming. And you just sit down there and just thinking, I'd rather just go and watch some YouTube or something like that. Because of the pain of that experience in itself, it just feels like there's just too much, and it's just going to be overwhelming, and you might feel like it's going to break you. So what's happening is this is actually a fused problem. And why is it a fused problem? It's a problem that has multiple problems in it. That has multiple pieces in it that and makes it really hard to face. It could be something like you have a traumatic experience from childhood that keeps popping up. Anytime it keeps popping up, it feels overwhelming. It just feels like it's going to break here. You just keep having to push it back, right? So anything that has multiple elements to it, but it feels like just one thing, but it's really a bundle of things. This is the fuse problem monster. Now, the fuse problem monster, a good way you can know that you're being faced with a fuse problem monster is that you just find yourself always just putting it off because you just don't know where to start with it. Just don't know where to start with it. So the fuse problem monster, once you know this is the problem we're faced with, now this is how we're going to use AI. The goal of AI would be to help you find a way of sectioning things. So in other words, you're going to go to the AI tool that you would usually use. Maybe you use ChatGPT, maybe you use Claude, and you're going to explain, okay, this is exactly what I'm dealing with. Narrate the experience, and then ask the AI, please, I need you to help me section this into the different pieces. And the goal here is you section and then you hand me just one piece at a time. Now, why are we doing it this way? I mean, usually when we manage this particular type of overwhelming therapy, what the therapist would do with you would be to listen through everything you have to say. And as you're talking through everything, what the therapist is that really doing in their mind is that they're sectioning things. They're sectioning things, looking at what each thing is, and what are things that can be categorized together, what are things that should not be categorized together. Because when you put things together that shouldn't be categorized together, it just naturally creates confusion and overwhelm. And for somebody who's not necessarily seeing the different pieces clearly, it's just easy that you just get overwhelmed. It's a bit like me saying to someone who's not a doctor, for example, you're not a doctor, but can you go there and look at that person's brain and perform an operation on that brain? You won't know where A is from Z. If that's going to kill the person. The same way sometimes when you are having to deal with these type of fuse problems, you will not know what section should go with what section, what should be categorized with another thing. Now, I have to be careful here. This is not me suggesting that people are not wise enough, they are not intelligent enough to think through things. Not necessarily that, but it's more that when we're dealing with things that make us feel overwhelmed, there's a degree of inability to categorize things properly that comes into the picture that causes this tangled mess problem. And so we need a system to help us untangle it. And because we're at that moment of being overwhelmed, we are being sabotaged by being overwhelmed, having an external thing untangle it for us can now give us some clarity. Have you ever noticed how sometimes, there's a problem you have, and then you go and discuss it with a friend, and the friend reflects back to you in a particular way that, all of a sudden you felt, oh, why didn't I see it like that? It was so clear. But it's because what's happened is the friend is not tangled up like you are in at that moment. As such, they're able to see certain perspectives with that thing that you won't have seen. Um, so by using a little bit of a similar element to this, except for the AI can see so many different angles to a problem that we may not necessarily see, that another friend may not necessarily see. So we're going to hand the whole thing to the AI and ask the AI, please segment everything into pieces and just hand me one. Now, you will know that you're dealing with the right amount if you can describe the problem the AI handed back over to you in a sentence. If you can just describe that in just one sentence. If you can't describe it in one sentence, then it's not small enough. So again, the prompts that you're giving the AI would have to kind of highlight that, okay, when you section these things out, hand me one, but that should be small enough to be able to describe in a sentence. I'm hoping that makes sense. Now, when the AI hands you the one thing to just hand manage, it's important that you put a bit of a time frame on it. That okay, this is the one thing that I'm thinking of now. Maybe the one thing is I'm just thinking of a specific time that I felt really frustrated with some money, and that thing just keeps coming back, constantly disturbing me. Maybe I just give it like a 30 minutes to just sit down with this a little bit and just deal with just that one thing. Right. Now, there's a bit of a question that would come out here sometimes, because what people will be thinking is, but why are you asking the AI to section and just hand me one? What if other parts of of the big problem is more important? Why, if I just deal with this one, I'm not dealing with those other ones that I need to deal with? Is that not a problem waiting to happen? Is that something that's not going to overwhelm me in the future? The reality here is, it's possible that all the different parts of the problem could overwhelm you. But if you can't find a place to start, the problem, this particular fused problem will keep being a problem going forward. And you have other issues in life that comes and adds to that, and it just becomes a mountain that never gets solved. So having some way of just starting somewhere becomes a process to start to ease the overwhelm. I'm hoping that makes sense. Right. So that is the fused monster. The second monster is the phantom capacity monster. Now, you may have guessed what this one is already, but this one is a very strange one in that this can be hard to realize, especially if you are someone who likes to be supportive of other people. Maybe like to support other people, or like to just be helpful. And being helpful means then that people come to you, ask for help, ask for support in different ways, and you gladly give your time. But quite often you're not necessarily being aware of what time you actually have. So in other words, you may be the kind of person who you filled your diary with different things to do, and somebody else comes and asks you for some support for some time, and you looked in your diary, and in your diary, maybe the afternoon on Thursday looks like it was empty. Maybe you were doing something with the family in the morning, and so the afternoon is empty. You put the person down in the afternoon, and nothing necessarily wrong with that, except for the fact that if you're only eyeballing things by what you feel you can do, you will certainly notice that your life feels overloaded with so many things. And the reason why this is happening then is sometimes when we in our mind think something is going to take an hour, the reality is that it takes 5 hours. I don't know if anybody's had that experience. You've allocated a specific amount of time because you think that amount of time that would take. But quite often you're always allocating way less time than the thing really actually takes. which then means that if you fill your diary with similar things that take more time than the time you allocated it, you don't have capacity. And this is why there's a phantom capacity. You think you have capacity, but you don't necessarily have capacity. Now, why am I saying you may not have capacity? Because yes, your capacity may need you to spend more time looking after children, may need you to spend more time looking after your house, may need you to spend more time cleaning, looking after your health, may need to actually spend more time sleeping, may need you to spend more time resting. There's so many things a healthy body requires that your capacity needs you to make time for. But we fill our calendar with so many other things that then makes it hard to make time for those things that will sustain our body. Can I just get a big thumbs up for just to get a sense of if anybody can relate to this? Yep, got one. I got at least one. So, two. Okay, so at least two of us in the group, so we can relate to this particular trap. So the way we use AI for this trap, I got one more. Great. So the way we use AI for this particular trap is something I call the real hours map. Now, this is very important, and this is perhaps even so important, especially if at work, you tend to get given more work to do than the amount of hours you actually allocated to do work at work. So the idea here is you're going to get the AI to actually look at everything that you do. I didn't say everything in your calendar. I didn't say everything that you do. Just kind of spend an hour or two just listing out all the different things that you do, usually on a daily basis within the kind of time frames you usually have. And I will listing everything and then getting the AI to kind of suggest roughly how much time would some of these things take, and use that to sort of judge how much time you would usually have given for that thing, and get the AI to help you correct for discrepancies. And when I do this with people, usually what would happen is they're almost always going to be placing less hours or less minutes for the different tasks, and the AI is putting way more time on each task. Now, we would usually suggest that people would add more hours than would perhaps realistically possible, because then that actually gives them a bit more breathing space and makes this particular strategy work out well. So once you've got that, you make sure that these are visible in your calendar, so that whenever any other task comes in, you're judging it by real capacity, not by phantom capacity anymore. So somebody gives you anything else to do, you look in your diary, you actually see, do you have space? You can't see any space. You tell the person, unfortunately, I can't really fit you in this particular time. Maybe we can try another time. I'm hoping that all makes sense. So this is how we use AI to help us to judge the phantom capacity problem. Okay, so this is another way where we will reduce the amount of overwhelm because our capacity is not being ballooned, because we're adding more beyond the capacity that we really have. Okay, so that brings us to the next trap, which is the next monster, which is it's all urgent monster. Now, the it's all urgent monster is another weird one, because the name may seem like, or maybe the reason why this is a trap is because I treat everything like it's urgent. Not exactly. So this trap comes about because quite often, when we are dealing with different things, we can leave them as what I call open loops. So let's say, for example, I have an application I'm trying to deal with, and I know, okay, this application, I must complete it. But I don't write it in any words as a reminder. I'm keeping it in my head as a reminder. or I have another task that I need to do, I also add it to my list of things in my head as a reminder. I have another task I need to do. So we have all this list of open loops of activities that we have to do. And because we are creating all these open loops of activities, it creates something I call a mental tax on the brain, which is a strange thing that people will not necessarily know that is a problem. It's something called the Zeigarnik effect. And what the Zeigarnik effect is that when I keep a list of ideas and keep a list of things that I need to do, unwritten, but just in my head to remember, my brain is going to use a lot of energy to remember those list of things. And that list of things, that energy is used in itself becomes what contributes to the overwhelm. I'm hoping you are seeing a pattern how each thing in that list of 5 things were on the monster 3. So monster 1, monster 2, monster 3, these 3 things already, most people would already be having experiences with each one. Just imagine each one adding its own drain on a person, and you are not necessarily managing it with the right tools. By the time you reach monster 3, which is now adding this tax on the head of that list of activities that it has to remember. And why does it have to remember? Because you're thinking, okay, if I don't remember this list, the last time I didn't remember this one, I made a mistake and something fell through that I could have saved. So I don't want to forget that again. So usually what we say to people for this particular list, particular trap, what we want to do, again, to externalize this is to capture. Okay, I see someone has a hands up or a question. Who's there? Mr. Agba. Yeah, your mic is muted. Do you have a question?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Yes, thank you. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Yeah. I just wanted to ask a question about this Virgo effect. It's like, I think you said, if I heard rightly, that the things in your head to remember can contribute to overwhelm.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, decades ago,
Yeah.
we used to have hundreds of numbers in one's head, telephone numbers. I'm just giving an example. And now today in 2026, you just remember your own phone number.
Okay.
How does this apply now in this presentation?
All right.
How
So
will you overcome that?
okay. So there may be slight different here because the list of things, I guess the way I'm thinking about the list of things are perhaps a list of problems or list of tasks to complete or list of chores to finish, which I'm keeping in my head. So the reason that becomes a tax is that if I just write it down on paper, for example, let's say I write on paper that I have to go. I'm just thinking off my top of my head. I have to pick my son up at school. I have to cook my wife a meal before she comes home. I have to. If I just write that on my alarm and my alarm reminds me, then I don't have to spend energy to try and remember it. So that the reason why this is a tax is because of the energy to try and remember that is taking resources of the brain. Now, from what you are describing, years ago, we used to be able to kind of remember numbers, and now we don't because we perhaps don't feel like we have the reason to memorize the numbers. I know that's exactly it. It was almost like it's a lost thing that we have, isn't it? It's almost like something that we've lost. That ability to remember long numbers or our mobile numbers. But with regards to this, I'm not too sure if it really is the same thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, so we work with numbers. We work with people with telephone numbers. We need to return calls. it takes so much time to go into the phone and find the number as opposed to recalling the number immediately. So it's the same as a diary. It's the same as a diary as things that you're explaining. But the only thing, I'm relating it to numbers because numbers are important to me for when I'm
Yes.
working.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And
from,
so it's embrace technology as it is now. And that is where the overwhelm comes because you have to go into the phone. So if the phone is locked or you don't have your phone, you're unable to ring someone that you need to for work. So
right.
if you're a consultant or a therapist, you need to call someone, but you're unable to do so because
So
I'm just saying there's another type of overwhelm.
yeah,
Listen,
it could become another type of overwhelm. And in a way, it's the opposite to what I'm talking about here, isn't it? Because what I'm talking about here is more about actually externalizing the thing you're trying to remember onto something. And what you are talking about is actually internalizing some things to reduce the overwhelm of having to look for it, isn't it?
really.
Yeah. So
What's the parallel there?
it's somewhat opposites, isn't it? Does that make sense? The opposite in the sense that what we're trying to do is sometimes when we have a lot of difficulties that we're trying to manage, difficulties perhaps feel much bigger than trying to remember numbers, but also feels more painful to try to keep in the head to remember the different things that we're trying to resolve or trying to address. But maybe having a list of things then makes it easier to not think too much of the list in your head and try to remember it. Whereas a phone number, if I memorize my phone number, memorize a phone number for a friend, it's easier to find it because I've memorized it, and then it's perhaps more stressful to look for it. So in a way, they're kind of working opposites. But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no stress. For some people, there's no stress for a to-do list or to remember, I need to pick this up, do this. It becomes automatic. But for
Exactly.
some, we would be very AI, or is it AI? AI
Mhm.
is taking that over. So what I think now that you've spoken, I'm getting clarity now,
Mhm.
that eventually people will stop remembering what they need to do. Eventually, so then it becomes like the phone numbers that you used to remember because everybody is depending on AI to structure their itinerary.
It might be, but it might not be, because if you think about it in terms of your home address, for example. So whilst you might not remember a phone number, you still remember your home address.
Really?
I'm surprised if someone doesn't remember their home address. But what I'm saying the home address would be that if you think about it, the reason why we used to have to remember mobile our home numbers, the way numbers were before were sorry, the way telephones were before were like this dial-in phones that doesn't necessarily store the numbers on it. And they may have the number on it, but it was something that was situated in one place. And so the only other way you could have your number is either you remember it. Whereas for now, our mobile phones hold our numbers. It's easy to kind of look into the mobile phone to know your number. So almost like the reason to know your number, the need to know your number reduced in importance. Is a bit like with the calculators. The need to calculate certain numbers reduced in importance because you had things that could help you calculate it too. Sister Mona, I see you have your hands up. Do you want to say something?
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. You're muted, Sister Mona.
Then make sure it can pass some heat is then make sure
Sorry, you started in middle of your sentence because you were muted. Can you restart what you were saying again?
The measure is the task completed. You got that? Did you get that?
Sir, sorry, you went quiet again.
Well, I didn't understand what's going on. The bottom line is the measure isn't task completed. The measure is what you're still carrying.
Exactly.
So the measure of what? Success or effective use of AI?
Okay, I'm not sure I understood the question. Are you asking a question? Are you making a comment? Sorry.
No, asking a question.
Oh, all right. So, okay. So question is,
The measure isn't task completed. The measure of what?
the measure.
That is at the bottom of your screen. She's asking you,
Oh, she's looking at the button. Okay.
she is.
Right.
You could have made
No, I thought you were asking something completely different. So the measure isn't in the task. Yeah. So what we're saying is that the thing that the amount of things in the head, you can think of each sentence in your head is using energy. So the amount of sentences that you are having to remember is using energy. So let's say you are already overwhelmed. That's an additional pressure that is increasing the overwhelm.
yeah.
So that's why the measure isn't in the task that you're completing, it's more in what's the amount of things you're carrying in your head. And that's what we're trying to kind of reduce in this particular case. Now, I have mentioned using AI here. You don't necessarily have to use AI. Just going to my sister Dean Esther's point. It's just AI can also just help to lift some of the load. Sometimes in therapy, we would have said to people before AI came, we would have said to people, maybe create a list. Although list can become a bit of a problem if it's not done in a particular way. But create a list as a way of reducing the tax on the head. But the AI would help us to just create it in a way that it can be a little bit more elegant. Again, I'm going to be sharing some prompts later on that will show you exactly how that looks. Okay. Thank you, Sister Mona, and thank you, Sister Dean, for contributing.
You have explained what you're talking about. That wasn't my question. I got that. The measure isn't task completed, is what you're carrying. So is the measure success or is the measure effective use of AI? Does that make sense?
So this is a point you're making now, yeah? Sister Mona?
It's the question.
It's still a question. Okay.
Yeah. What is it? Is the measure success in reducing overwhelm or is the measure success in effective using AI?
The measure is success in reducing overwhelm.
Okay, excellent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So the measure is success in reducing overwhelm by not carrying too much in the head. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. So the next monster 4, is the fuel thinking monster. Now, the way the fuel thinking monster works is this. We have a condition that all humans have, is that whenever we are in an emotional state, when we feel more emotions, the more emotional we get, the less logical we can become. You may have noticed. Okay, can I just ask if everybody's got their mic on? If you just mind putting it off because we're hearing some background noise. Right, so the more emotional we become, the less logical our minds can be. So you may find yourself in situations where you find yourself getting more angry. The more angry you become, the less you would likely even question how you react to a person until maybe later on, because you're not logically thinking clearly about what you're saying. And later on, you get frustrated with yourself. You get even embarrassed at some of the things you said. And say, well, that's horrible. I shouldn't say something like that. But in that moment of anger, our ability to think logically drops. The same way with feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling sad. So in intense emotions, there's often a trap that we're trying to think our way through a problem, trying to get clarity on a problem. And whilst we are feeling emotionally intense, it's just almost impossible in that moment to be able to think clearly, just because of this biological thing that happens. Can anybody relate to what I've just described in terms of how we might find ourselves thinking less clearly when we are in an emotional state? If you can relate, just thumbs up again. Cool. All right. Got a particular thumbs up there. Cool. Right. So thank you. So for this particular one, the strategy here that again we're using AI in this strategy to help to review the incident in a very logical way, because one of the things that AIs are good at are not being emotionally attached to whatever it is that we are trying to describe. How might that look? It may be that maybe someone said something to us that we felt really offended by, and in our offense, we are getting really overwhelmed by it. We could then get the AI to help us just explore what it is that was going on. And there are ways we can do it. Again, I'm going to be sharing the prompt later on. But there are ways we can do it that can help us to gain some clarity that we perhaps won't be able to gain whilst we're just feeling sort of that emotion, in that kind of emotional state. And AI can have this different effect in the sense that, I don't know if you've ever had this situation where you're feeling emotional about something, and then some of maybe your family member or friend or partner just coming to you and trying to be logical about it with you. But their very effort to be logical about it with you just gets you even more frustrated, and you just don't even want to listen to what they have to say. They may be correct, but it just feels like this is just the wrong time to do this. But when we choose to go and try to think clearly about it using AI, it's almost like we are making those decisions ourselves. That almost makes it a lot easier for us to actually take on board what the AI might suggest in a logical way. Now, a few things I have to say. Our first session on using AI for managing emotions, we did highlight very important rules to follow, because AI can be quite sycophantic. In other words, it can tell you you're right even when you're wrong, or tell you you're wrong even when you're right, if you are not asking the questions in the right ways. So in our very first video, a webinar, you can see that on our YouTube channel, or you can get the link in the community if you are in the community as well. In our very first video, we lay down very, very important prompts that you should use to help avoid that. So whenever you are dealing with things that make you feeling emotional, it's quite important that the prompts you use with AI are not are protected in this way, so that they are not sort of guiding you in the wrong way. So we use AI to help us to get some sense of logical distance, to help us think a little bit different, a little bit clearer when we're dealing with these kind of things. Okay, so that's the fourth trap. So the fifth one I call the no-end monster. And the no-end monster, the way it also shows up is that when you have tasks that are not fully defined, as in, this is a task that belongs to me, this is the end of the task, or this is a task that belongs to my other colleague at work. Or if you have, for example, a role at work, you took a job, and you had a role in the interview that was given to you, but by the time you get to the job the role itself is very unclear. So you're not really sure what's your job, what's not your job. And because of that, you find yourself taking on a lot more things that perhaps you shouldn't take. Or you have a task, a list of tasks you need to do at home, but you never really define this particular task. This is how it ends. This is where it ends. This is where it begins, right? So we have different tasks that just don't have clearly defined endings and beginnings, or clearly defined ownership. And these types of tasks can seep into your day in so many different ways. And as long as they are there, they're going to create a lot of overwhelm. Now, this particular monster, can you relate to it? If you can relate to it, can I see some thumbs up? This one will be also common. Let's say you're a manager and then you find yourself taking other people's jobs, or you just feel like you have to do some other jobs because you feel you can help here, you feel you can help there, right? So this one, the way we use the strategy is that we tell AI, okay, this is my task, this is my job role, this is my list of tasks. Let's help me define what's mine, what's not mine, what's other people's, or within this amount of time I have, how much of this task can be done within this amount of time I have, so that you can start to create some form of definition around the work. Now, how would that look for me, for example? I do a lot of programming. I program. I do a lot of music. I do a lot of work with clients. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of research work just to try and understand different types of problems. And quite easily, I can find that I start one and then my day is over, is gone before I realize it. And so I had to really tell myself, okay, for my music, it will only take just an hour. For my research work, it will take maybe 30 minutes. So I'm having definite times I'm placing on that work. Now, if I was working in a team, part of what I'll be needing to do is making sure that, okay, my role doesn't mix up with other people's roles. So this is how we're going to use AI to help us to start to define the edges of our work, so that we do not take on way more than we need to take on. Right. So this is how the 5 monsters show up. And the thing is, what you would notice is that they are not on their own. You don't just have one of them. You may have 3 of them. You may have 4 of them. You have 5 of them. It may be that a particular task, a particular experience shows only 1 up. A particular situation shows only 3 up. A particular situation shows all 5 up regularly. And you may find that for yourself, you go through cycles where these 5 in one form or the other just keep showing up. The goal now is you start learning to use the different tools for each of the 5 monsters. And the more you master that process, the more you find yourself being able to just find exactly, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is a particular monster that I'm working with. This is the tool that works with it. The more you get to the point of being able to do that without necessarily thinking too much about what you need to do, you find that the overwhelm will start to just reduce by just that nature of the practice. Now, again, if you notice, the strategies themselves, they may not necessarily solve a problem outright, as in they may not. If let's say you're thinking that your problem is that you don't have enough money for the family, you wish you had double the amount of money you're making. This strategy would not necessarily make you make double the amount of money, but it's going to still deal with the different cycles that promote overwhelm in a person's life. And the more you master it, you may not have made that double amount of money, but you feel less overwhelmed, if that makes sense. I'm just thinking about that. I'm thinking to myself that I will still really love the double amount of money, even though I don't feel overwhelmed. So that brings us to the end of our workshop. As I said, in terms of the prompts, the different prompts for the different AI solutions that you can use, I will be sharing that in the community. Again, the community, if you are not already in the community is free to be in, and in the community, we are sharing different strategies relating to emotional patterns that make people struggle. So after this session now, I'm going to post the prompt in the community. And if there's anybody who's not in the community and don't really want to join the community and you just want me to email you the prompt, you can just let me know. Send me a text later on and I'll email you the prompts as well. Cool. So that brings us to the end of the session. If you're interested in joining the community, you can use the QR code on the screen, or just text your number to me on that number 07-378-942-110. So now we have some time for questions. If anybody has any question they'd like to ask about any of the things we've covered today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very informative, actually.
Cool.
I saw the link and I kind of thinking, okay, to ask that, I'm glad I did join, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very informative, as I put on the base. I was going to ask, do you do it on a wider scale? Because this is something that is, this is my first time of learning, by the way.
Okay.
And I find very, 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 very good. Is this something that you do, something that you can do, Chris, on a wider scale, if need be?
If I may ask some clarity, what do you mean by wider scale?
So if we were to invite you to say our church, or to maybe, like, we have a prayer line, to maybe share this with our prayer line members, Chris?
Oh,
Talking about things that we are going to do. Some of them are being blood separate. So if we can have this on a wider scale, this will be I think a lot of people will benefit. The 2 minutes I've been here, I have left 1 or 2. So yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. That's totally fine. If you want to invite me, you just invite me. Just let me know, and I would just kind of, as long as it can work in by my diary, yeah, so that I don't want to be overwhelmed as well.
Oh, it's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Deanne. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, Deanne. I see you have your hands up. You want to go to the question? Oh, is that it? I'm not hearing anything. Is anybody hearing anything? Deanne, you're muted. If you have a question, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. I just
yeah.
wanted to say thank you.
Ah,
And the session, it's the way you presented it. It was very nice, and it's encouraged me now to maybe look at this AI business.
okay.
I just wanted to ask:
Yes.
do you have different levels? Because like this presentation feels like a GCSE A-level, degree level. Do you have like a kindergarten level to ease us through, understand more fully what you were saying to them?
Right. I mean, yes, we can make it up. We can take it down to a kindergarten level if that's necessary. Would you?
Because it's about upskilling. We may have been very proficient with technology before, but technology is changing every second of the day, as opposed to like every month.
So you're saying really, if there's any kind of strategies that it can apply the same strategy but more at a kindergarten level, so it's
Yes.
easier to kind of apply.
Yes, because you need to learn the foundation levels before. So like I said before, this feels like a GCSE, A level or degree level.
Wow.
tonight.
Okay. I love apologies.
So it hurts my mind up that I really want to understand.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you learn a little bit more, maybe you would be asking certain questions or not
Right.
asking for in question.
Ah, right. Okay. So I mean, you've challenged me to find a way to make it even easier to apply at that level. Then, yeah. So perhaps what I would do is also create almost like a guide that I'll put into the community and people can just access it.
Oh,
Or
that would be fabulous. Okay.
yes, that's something I can do definitely. Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
amazing. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, most welcome.
To understand, and thank you, Jewel, for the lead. It's
Ah,
taken me a while to get a grasp of it, and I think I'm ready now.
oh,
Thanks
cool.
to you.
Yeah,
Okay, bye.
yeah, thanks, Sarah. Julian, you have your hands up.
Yes, good night, everyone. Thank you, Olive, for this very, very explained, important service that you're giving to us. I'm looking at the phantom number 2. Is it number 2?
Mhm.
The phantom capacity,
Yes.
which is the monster.
Yes.
The monster. And you said you plan the week for a person who doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Could you explain that more?
So really, in other words, if you're planning the week with with in mind that you have capacity that you don't have. So, for example, you fill your calendar already, and somebody comes to ask you for something, and you say, "Oh, you have space in the calendar." You put them in. Whereas that in reality, if you fill that calendar properly based on the different tasks you have to do, you won't have space in that spot you just gave away to someone. So now it's like you're planning a calendar for someone else. That's not really you, because if you were to plan for you yourself, you would have filled that space properly because you don't really have that spot available. And another way to kind of explain it, I have a client of mine who, because she's not working, she's a housewife. She's tended to have a lot of her friends bring their children to stay with her whilst they are working and at different times of the day. But quite often she doesn't have the space or time to do it, but feels so guilty to say no. I can't take them right now. And so, but because they all feel she's not working, she must have time. But reality is, even though she's not working, being a housewife is a full-time job in itself. And so it's full of different things. So if she decides that, oh, because she's not working, she has time, will be the kind of person who's creating time for somebody else because she doesn't have the time. Did that make sense?
Yes, it does. Because I was on that trend actually in my mind, really, and my mind somewhere actually saying, having the power to say no in doing things and for others, or even taking on things. And then look at your diary and see where you would be going excessively above what you are able to do and to bring it to an end. I think one of it, your monsters is talking about putting an edge on it.
Exactly.
And sometimes we don't have the capacity to do that because we are pleasing people we want to please, but we go through different scenarios and we say yes, but at the end when we come away from it, we begin to think otherwise and to realize, well, if I had only said maybe, or I will think about it, it would have been a better course of action than taking on something and planning, as they said, for the person that doesn't exist, because I wouldn't exist because I don't have the time.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be for me.
Exactly.
Thank you, Wally.
You're most welcome. Abigail, I saw your hands up.
I
Abigail,
was just going to, can you?
I can hear you. See, I can hear you now.
Yeah. I was just going to say to the lady that said if you could try and break it down to like a kindergarten stage, if she was to go back from the beginning, it makes more sense.
Back from
I
the
think what
beginning.
you did is like from the beginning of your program when you started this session.
Right. So when we started
How to say, yeah, because you even said how to say no without saying no. So I'm just saying, if she goes back to those older sessions, she will find leading up to this session, it makes it easier to understand.
yes.
But I'm first time here in this program, and
I'm not too
relate.
No, I think
I
she
didn't get
was talking. She was talking about Deanne. I think she was talking about Deanne. Yeah. But I think
Yeah, no.
But I think Deanne was making also another point that I think was quite important in that the material may have been set at a level for someone who may need more an approachable level for approaching AI as a tool for this, so it's kind of easier to use. I think that's what that I'm getting from what Deanne was saying. That Deanne, correct?
Yeah, because to be able, for me, I would like to be able to embrace it, and I wouldn't call it a monster. I would call it my assistant.
All right.
You understand? I don't see it as a monster. I've been smiling all evening every time you mention monster, and I'm thinking, this is an assistant.
Okay. Okay. So the monster is the thing that causes the problem. That's why it's the monster. And again, the reason I'm calling the monster is because we're trying to use it to externalize something from us. In other words, this is not something that I'm carrying as a fault of mine. There's a monster here that is causing overwhelm that I need to externalize and actually find a solution for. That's why I'm calling it a monster. And that monster is not an assistant, because if you think of it as an assistant, it's going to be creating overwhelm for you because you're not managing it as a thing that's producing a problem. If that makes sense.
Because it's the asking. It brought to mind the scripture. You have to ask. So if you're going to ask, you wouldn't ask a monster for help. I understand what you're saying. It's a monster.
Right. But we're not asking the monster for help, definitely, because we don't want the help from the monster. We want the help from something else that helps us to move away from the monster. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the young lady. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So thank you all for being a wonderful audience today, and kind of wishing you all a good week. I mean, we've got a nice lineup for the next 5 sessions. We're actually going into dealing with what I call the empath problem. So people who are empaths who take on support and helping other people and struggle with saying no. There's going to be a whole series of things that we're going to be looking at to help with coping better, because sometimes being an empath, we don't recognize it, but we become magnets to toxic people just by being an empath. I would just want to look at different ways where we can start to sort of protect ourselves and grow and thrive more, regardless of being that person who still wants to help and support others. Cool. So thank you, and wishing you all a good weekend.
Before you go,
Yes.
could we invite others?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can invite others.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, then.
And just before you go,
Yes.
do you do this weekly? Is this a weekly?
This is a weekly program. Yes, it's a weekly program at 7:13. 7:13 every Sundays.
Oh, 7. Oh, right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, then. Bye, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.